But you famously had a lot of resistance to the concept of Airbnb and now massive consumer acceptance. So when you look back on your journey, everybody telling you this is crazy, it's never going to work. And then everybody, when they see you, saying, oh my God, I love Airbnb. How do you reconcile that as an entrepreneur?
We came up, obviously I know Joe told the founding story, but I'll tell a little bit of there's a founding story, and then Jason's a story of all the rejection. The first time we came up with the idea, it was October 2007. It was for a design conference that was coming to San Francisco. There was an after party at the Fairmont Hotel. We went to the Fairmont Hotel. The first person I told about the idea, he looks at me with a straight face. He said, Brian, I said, yes. He goes, I hope that's not the only idea you're working on. That's what he said to me. And this is like a design luminary in our industry. And that was kind of the general sentiment. I remember in January, February 2008, Joe and I were living in San Francisco in an apartment, and we had a roommate named Phil. And Phil worked for this company called Justin.tv. Justin.tv was a precursor to Twitch, and it was funded by this program called Y Combinator. Now, I didn't know anything about Y Combinator. I didn't know anything about Silicon Valley. I didn't even know what angels were. Somebody once told me there are these people called angels, and I said, oh my God, this person believes in angels. So I was really naive. I didn't know anything about Silicon Valley. I was a designer by training. And Michael said, I can introduce you to these angel investors. And so Michael introduced us to 10 to 20 angel investors. Now, at the time, Jason, we were trying to raise $150,000 at a $1.5 million post-money valuation. So for $150,000, you could have owned 10% of Airbnb. And the majority of them didn't even reply to the email. I actually ended up publishing a bunch of the rejection emails, but many people said, like, this isn't a good idea. Many people said, like, travel, we're not, like, excited about travel. I remember one investor said, we love everything but you and your idea. In other words, we don't, I'm like, well, everything else is good. Unfortunately, I was like, so I thought to myself, wait, what else is there? There's me, there's the
logo.
Idea. Yeah, I guess there's the name, but they didn't like the name either. So, and what they meant by they liked everything but us and the idea was, it was 3 founders, 1 software engineer, and 2 designers. And they thought, well, you have like too many designers in your founding team. You know, like people just associated designers as like non-technical and therefore like maybe not adding value. And I think I always felt like Joe and I, our ability as being designers was actually part of the secret sauce of Airbnb because it was not a pure technology problem. And also people said, this is crazy. Strangers never stay with other strangers. So basically no investors will invest in this company. Everyone rejects us. It's now the fall 2008. We had just provided housing for the Democratic and Republican national conventions. You know, Barack Obama and John McCain were running for president. The airbeds weren't working. We were renting out airbeds. They weren't selling. So we thought, let's go with breakfast. We're airbed and breakfast. And so Joe and I ended up creating this collectible breakfast cereal, these boxes of Cheerios that we called Obama O's, the breakfast of change. And then we bought Captain Crunch. And we read that John McCain was a captain in the Navy, and we called it Captain McCain's, a maverick in every bite. And it seemed kind of crazy. We made these cereal boxes, and we actually printed and made $30,000 worth of cereal boxes that we sold. And you know those baseball card binders that kids, those binders of kids, but we used to put credit cards in them. In other words, we funded this company tens of thousands of dollars of credit card debt. We use the cereal boxes to get us out of debt, but now it's like October 2008. We've been working on this idea for like a year. At some point, my mom said, "Are you a cereal company?" And I technically, I think we were. I didn't want to admit it. I guess we were serial entrepreneurs, but not the right kind of serial entrepreneurs. Yeah. And I remember I was with, out of desperation, Joe and I went to dinner with Michael Seibel. And Michael Seibel, he had co-founders, Justin Kahn, Emmett Shear, and Kyle Voigt. Emmett runs Twitch. Kyle Voigt runs Cruise. And we went to like a Thai restaurant in San Francisco, and it was like towards the end of the year, and we're like brainstorming what to do. We were kind of screwed. We're like, everyone said no to us. We have no traction. We're selling collectible breakfast cereal. Everyone thinks this idea is no good. No one wants to fund like 2 designers and an engineer. What do we do? And then Justin says, I have an idea. Why don't you apply to Y Combinator? And it's like, and we're like, but we already launched. Why would we apply to Y Combinator? And they're like, because you're dying. You have no like growth. And so we go on the Y Combinator website and we realize that the deadline was the night before. In other words, it had just expired. We couldn't wait for another batch. Oh, by the way, Jason, the financial crisis, you remember, had just happened.
Sure.
And I remember one investor, I'm not going to lie, one investor told me, he said, the economy is so bad, we won't even invest in good companies. You think we're going to invest in air bed and breakfast, an unproven concept, people staying with each other? Oh, and one other story is that Joe and I went to University Avenue. We met an investor who I won't name.
Right.
He orders a strawberry smoothie. He then sits down drinking the strawberry smoothie, never picked his head up. I my first interaction with an investor, I'm like, maybe this is what they all do. He goes, and then within 10 minutes, he like leaves. And I thought like he had to park his car. We haven't seen him since though.
That's hilarious.
So at this point, we're like these bad news bears of Silicon Valley. We were like rejects. And Justin Kahn, we're at dinner and they're like, oh my God, you're totally going to die now. Cause like you can't get into Y Combinator. Yeah. And then Justin Kahn says, I'm going to email Paul Graham. And he ends up emailing Paul Graham and he goes, is this deadline definitely over? And Paul Graham says, I will extend it to midnight tonight. It says like 9 p.m. Okay. Yeah. But they have to apply by midnight. Now, Joe and I are in San Francisco. We have a co-founder named Nate, who's an engineer. He's in Boston. Now, it's like midnight, and Nate kind of doesn't sleep past, I think he went to bed. So I told Joe, I said, okay, well, divide and conquer. I will fill out the application, and you will convince Nate, you're going to wake his ass up in Boston and convince him to do Y Combinator if we get in. So he calls Nate. Apparently, he goes, Nate's in. I'm like, great. We fill out the application. We submit it. Then a week later or whatever, we get an interview. And then we tell Nate, and I think Nate's like, wait, what? What did I agree to? I agreed to like move to San Francisco. So, you know that movie 8 Mile where like Eminem, he's like, you got like one shot. This was kind of it. This is like our one shot, right? So we like prepared for this interview like crazy. And we were warned, this is going to be like a 15-minute interview. And they're going to ask you 4 questions at the same time. And you better know every answer. And Justin and Michael and Emmett said like, just know your numbers inside and out. So we basically did like rehearsals. We almost recreated like NYPD Blue or like we throw a phone book in each other's faces. Yeah. Like we were just like, we better get this shit right. So we go to Y Combinator. We go to the interview. It's exactly what I expected. It's Paul, it's Jessica, it's Trevor Brackwell, and it's, I think, Robert Morris. And they're all like, basically, they all ask us questions at the same time, like all 4 of them. And I was like totally bewildered. And the first question Paul Graham asked me is, people are actually doing this? And I said, yes. His second question was, what's wrong with them? And the interview at that point went downhill from there. Midway through the interview, he basically tried to get us to create Stripe. He's like, you should create this like payments company or like an online bank or something. And we're like, that seems like a really good idea, but like we have an idea. And we're about to leave the interview. It doesn't seem like it's going well. And Joe takes out a box of Obama O's and he hands it to Paul Graham. And Paul Graham's like, he just got a novelty gift. He's like, all right, thank you. Yeah. And we goes, what's the story? He goes, this is how we funded the company. And he goes, what do you mean? He said, well, we told him the story, how we like made the cereal boxes. And then the way we sold the cereal boxes, we mailed them to reporters and they put them in their newsroom desk and everyone would buy them. And he said something like, I guess if you can convince people to pay $40 for a $4 box of cereal, then maybe you can convince at least some people to stay in each other's homes. And he ended up admitting us to Y Combinator. And I guess we've never looked back since. I also want to give credit to Jessica because I think Jessica thought, I remember Paul and Jessica said later they thought we were like cockroaches. And I think they mean it in a good way, that it was like an investment in nuclear winter. And in a nuclear holocaust, the only thing that survives are cockroaches. And the only thing that would survive an investment in nuclear winter would be the founders of Airbnb. We said, we won't die no matter what happens. And so they basically funded us because we seemed resilient, unkillable, and like even if the fundraising market was dried up, we would just go on. So it was definitely not a story to glory in the beginning. And I like to remind founders of this because then when we got product market fit 3 months later, we got funded by Sequoia. And so in a 3-month period, we went from like kind of like this untouchable company to Sequoia. And if you were a part of Sequoia, so you'll remember 2009, I would say it was like, it's I don't know, it's like going to like an Ivy League school or something. Like it meant something. It was a real seal of approval and it was crazy. And
you were anointed basically. If Sequoia invested in you, that was like, okay, seal of approval. This is a legit company.
And I think it meant even more then, not because Sequoia was more prestigious then, but because there wasn't a much capital then. Like I just, you know, I don't, you know, this industry better than I do, but I don't remember hundreds of people I could contact to get money. They're really Angel List, I don't think existed, or
it was Venture List at the time.
Yeah,
I was doing like my Open Angel Forum. They were like, maybe you could make a list of maybe 25 angel investors in the Valley.
And half of them said no to us already. So clearly, and we raised money. Jason, our first actual round, which is a Series A, was, and this is when we had product market fit. We were voted by Y Combinator. So each batch, they rate like the best company like halfway through and at the end. And we were rated the best. So we had the most traction. And then we raised $615,000 at a $3 million post-money valuation.
Incredible.
With product market fit, $3 million post-money.
It's crazy. And you just like look at the signaling at that time.
Yeah.
It was so weird. Like people had these ideas like, oh, well, the only way it's going to work is if you're from Stanford, you're from RISD. Like, what is that? Like, and one developer and two designers makes a difference between two developers and one designer. Like, obviously, these are not the material things. All that matters is the customers and do they engage with the product and actually get some value. And that's what you figured out was you don't need to appeal to everybody. There just has to be somebody who gets value from this.
Exactly.
And
that's a great lesson.
Group of people. Yeah,
that's a great lesson. Michael Saab used to tell us to me. I used to tell Jason, Michael, I said, my sister won't stay in Airbnb because initially when I first came with the idea, she said she wouldn't do it. And he said, who cares about your sister? She's not the early adopter. You need the early adopters. You just need enough people to get the flywheel going. Everyone else will come later. So focus on those people.
If you want your business to succeed online, it has to stand out, and that's why you need a beautiful, world-class website. The good news is you don't have to hire an expensive designer anymore, nor do you need a bunch of developers. No, Squarespace has all the tools you need to claim your domain and start building your company. Hey, maybe you got a product to sell. Maybe you want to show off some samples of your work. Maybe you've got a new service you're providing. Well, Squarespace is the all-in-one tool you need for your business to grow and flourish. And they offer beautiful templates. Maybe you want to start an online course or you're scheduling appointments for people. Maybe you're generating client invoices. All of that is built into the product. Everything you create with Squarespace is pre-optimized to show up in search engines as well. So you don't need to hire some expensive SEO person. Nope. They're building your meta descriptions, they're setting you up with an auto-generated sitemap, and the SEO is done before you even get started. Plus, there's a new AI-powered feature. It's called Blueprint, which makes it easier than ever before to customize your website and make it really pop. So check out squarespace.com/twist for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/twist to get 10% off your first website or domain purchase. That's squarespace.com/twist.